Do, 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 do. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Um, hey, what's up, Mulini T? Welcome to the live chat. We're going to be doing a live, possibly a 30 to 45-minute chat with a choreographer, dancer, director from London called Gerrard Martin Dance. Hi to Massey Kate also. How you doing? Shout out. Uh, okay, we have Gerard online. Thank you so much for coming through. If you're not gonna be able to stay for a while, I think maybe come and watch the saved. Hey, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. How about you, Gerard?
I am good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, like I thought we are actually, yes, we are. We are 1 hour ahead. So South Africa is 1 hour ahead, I think. Because
Okay,
there it's 7:30, right?
it's 7:30 here. Yeah.
Okay, so here it's 8:30. So we are
Okay.
1 hour ahead.
Okay.
So what I did was I switched the times around. And I put
Uh,
6:30, and then when it's actually supposed to be 7:30 and you are 6:30. Anyway,
oh,
yeah.
we're here now.
Thank you so much for joining, Gerard. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out just to sort of have an informal talk, semi-formal talk about art, dance, and then just to sort of introduce myself to
Mhm.
everyone also, and also to you. I go by the name of Kwanele Finch Tusi, and I'm based here in South Africa, Johannesburg.
Mhm.
I am a educator, teacher in dance, in movement, in dance therapy. I also run my own agency, which is a production company called Kwanele Global Collective. And what we do is that we source out job opportunities for young adults who have just matriculated from high school. We try to give them the kind of the correct agencies to work under, or different companies to work under. We give them coaching and entrepreneurship skills, and we also cater to them by doing creative dance as well as dance and movement therapy with them. But besides that, I really am interested in a lot of concepts. I'm a very conceptual person, and so I create my own work, um, and the work uh, deals a lot around sexuality, around masculinity, and also just the challenges around masculinity, around sexuality, which is why when I then saw your Instagram account, I was like, what? There's somebody like
Right.
me in London? What is this? I have to talk to this guy.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Gerard Martin. I've been in the dance industry for over 20 years. Within that time, I've danced for contemporary companies, also done things like cruise ships, podium dance, dance for operas, was in The Lion King, pantos, all different sorts of aspects of the arts, which I think has been really useful. And part of um, being in some companies, as you know, you have to may have to do outreach, which was amazing because it taught me how to teach basically, and also hone my craft and the intention behind why we're doing the art form anyway.
Yeah,
So I've done lots of teaching from, I'd say, from 5-year-olds to over 60s and all in between, degree
awesome.
students, professionals. So, and it's really it's humbling as well when you actually think what people get from dance, and how you can touch people, and an exchange happens as well, energetically. And I've also started to do movement direction as well. So I work with actors and singers in different guises. And I opened up a project-based company, Gerrard Martin Dance, from about 2011, 2012. And again, like you, I'm into social awareness. So I think arts can entertainment also add awareness, touch people viscerally, emotionally. So, and I realised that lots of topics I've touched on has been cathartic for me and where I am in my life. And again, masculinity and sexuality has played a part into those pieces I've put out, as well as conformity, body image. So it's just serendipitous that you reached out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think the work that you do, as I said, is quite similar to my kind of work also, because we have to work with other people, and working with other people for me is the driver. As much as I like to create my own work, but if the work does not involve a collective or involve a group of people, then for me it becomes almost inefficient.
Mm-hmm. I feel you. I think for me, I just relish working in groups, with the creative team as well. I like the collaboration it brings. So the last piece I did was for a platform called Resolutions, which happens every year at the Place, which is a big institution for dance in London. And basically, through January to February, they have 3 performances a night, and it could be all different sorts of work, all different sorts of contemporary forms of work, whatever that means to you, dealing with whatever subject you bring to it, and 20 minutes long. And mine was about connection, and basically it was my first chance to work with digital as well. So one of my good friends is a spoken word artist, but she's dabbling into digital art and projection, and she's actually, I know it's great, and she's actually in St. Lucia when we were planning this. So we were doing lots of Skype calls, talking about our intention. She was sending over drafts, and we were just engaging on that level. And then I had somebody else doing music who was in a different place, and somebody else being a dramaturg, like a rehearsal director, and they were up in
amazing.
So there was a whole, even though we weren't together, we were together. That was the piece and the intention behind it, kind of connected us. And for I love that whole making something for a goal. So it's bigger than your sum of your parts, I suppose. It's bigger than you.
I love that. I love that because it actually, that's why I really wanted to have this conversation with you. Is the reality that we find ourselves in, especially during the COVID corona crisis, where artists now have to sort of reimagine what it means to be an artist, and how do I then contribute or even invite the digital economy or the digital space into my creating. And so I was hoping that then we can sort of talk about almost 4, I don't know what you call it, almost like 4 subtopics. The one would be to understand from your context, what is it that you have been going through as an artist based in London because of the coronavirus. And then the second one would be, how are things going to change for you as an artist? That we're talking about post-COVID or post-coronavirus. And then the third one would be, how do we then work as a collective again? What does it mean to work in a dance space, for example, knowing that you just come out of COVID crisis? And then the fourth one would be like any kind of new what are the new ways that artists can be working, and what does it mean to be a digital artist? What does that even mean? And maybe I could begin just to talk about our context in South Africa. When it comes to the impact that coronavirus has had, especially in our arts space, is it has definitely made us realize as artists that there are almost these two divisions within the art industry. And so in the one, you would have this group of artists who are very mainstream and who are doing music and commercialism. And then you will get the underground artists who are very much, I'm creating in my own space, in my own work. I'm creating a concept work, or I'm doing some piece for my exhibition, for example. And so that divide has definitely become even much more visible in our South African context, especially now when it came to government support, because in a sense, we find that one group is more favored than the other group when it comes to financial support also. And these are just some of the kind of concerns and frustrations that have come from both groups, is that there hasn't been any kind of direct relationship between our government and our art industry as a collective. And there's also this almost like this misunderstood ideologies between these two groups, which is the mainstream and the underground, let me call it underground artists. But at the same time, the COVID has affected both of us. So both groups, where now we have kind of everybody just almost like took a step back and said, okay, I've been doing dance, so I've been teaching every single day of my life, and now I'm being forced to be indoors. How am I going to do that? Because the only thing that I know is to go out to my class. I have my students, I teach, I get paid at the end of the month or the end of the week. And that pause has almost made us even more aware that that it's very important to diversify this idea of being an artist, and so the lockdown is definitely a trigger point in providing almost like a balance between these two worlds, both the mainstream and both the underground artists, because we are both doing the same thing. We are both creating art, whether it could be for money's sake, or it could be for art's sake, or maybe it could be for community's sake.
And where do you see yourself? Are you like somewhere in between? Just because it seems like you've got a big portfolio of work, it seems like you're sort of in both pockets.
Yeah. Well, for me, what I've always done is, as much as I come from a very concept-based background, where we actually go in and we were taught to create concept work and analyzing and research and books and theory. However, coming into the city, let me call it the city, and trying to work, I had to maneuver and adapt to having to create my own work and also having to do commercial work for money. Yes. Because I realized, you know what, it's very good and it's very fancy to say, oh, I'm just going to be in my own little tiny flat in Johannesburg and start painting these beautiful dance pieces. But if there's no money coming in,
Yeah.
it's a bit challenging. And so I'm a bit of both.
Yeah.
Which is why then having this discussion, we allow both kind of artists to see themselves within the conversation and to have their voice. And that's how our South Africa has been grappling with this reality. Yeah.
I thought it's a very interesting point you made about the whole commerce and arts, and then where we fit. Because a lot of my friends are like you. We may choreograph our own projects because it's hard to get many anywhere to set them up. And government offers schemes, but there's lots, especially in London, it's saturated with artists because it's capital, as you can imagine. So everybody gravitates to London because it's great for making work, but then it's when you try to get funding, it gets oversaturated. And then there's that whole thing of some people are multi-talented and that's great, but if you're an independent artist, it's like, okay, I want to get audience because I do need money, but then how do I do that? So then people teach. I teach yoga as well. Not saying they hate teaching, but it's just it's also like an orbit around the main satellite, maybe. So it's finding a way to diversify and have a greater portfolio so you can negotiate your way around London. And it's also, at the moment, the government has put into place a self-employment plan. So it just gives you a little bit of money just for a few months. But the big issue at the moment is like, what's next? Because it's only maybe going to last till bits of the summer. And there's people in the West End industry, which basically they just locked down because they can't tour, the theatres are all closed, and they might have been in a year contract every day, getting their weekly sum or monthly sum. And some of the theatres can't afford to overheads, so they're asking the government now to re-inject some money into them so they can make plans for the future, as in April next year or something, to reopen slowly. Because I think the government's, of course, has been looking at health, key workers, retail, businesses, getting the economy going, and sort of forgotten or put on the back burner the artist. Even though majority of people now are at home watching Netflix, they're reading their Kindles, they're doing Zoom classes in fitness and dance. So everybody needs art basically to help them express their emotions or connect. But we're always like the last ones to be considered, I think, the artists. I think that's where our parallels are between South Africa and England.
Definitely. I mean, same here. I mean, our government has definitely shown up for the art industry. And I think the disparities are only caused because there is no synergy between our art world as a collective. And so, which then, for me, personally speaking, the COVID has definitely almost like pulled out that person in me who has to do whatever they have to do to survive. And so, of course, it becomes the online classes, the coaching, the physical selling of goods, and also the looking of other avenues of what other skills do I have that I could use, and instead of me just calling myself as an artist. And in a singular form, how do I then become a very multi-dimensional artist? Which I think is very important. And I don't know. What do you think about that? What do you think about being a multi-dimensional artist who's able to dabble and go into different sectors within industries?
So I think I love the term you've used to call this conversation resilience, and I was just thinking about reflecting on how I got here, because I started in dance late. I started at 19, and I just went at a different course because that's what I had to do. I had to negotiate, have some tenacity, some great discipline, network as well. And I realised that because I started in one form, then I went to train at a college that offered more technical support,
Yeah.
Which I needed because I started late. Because I thought to be competitive in this world, in this industry, I need different strings for my bow. And I realised the more I'm versatile, it's actually helped me as an artist, but also helped my teaching and the people I've touched as well. And then I'm not too scared. Like if there was maybe a musical casting or going to work with actors, it's all being creative. I don't bulk at it as much as I used to. I was like, oh my god, I haven't got those skills. I've just had to adapt, learn as I've gone along, and my toolkit. I was going to say, that's my train of thought. It's all gone. So it'll come back. So is it? Sorry, you talk about resilience.
Yeah.
I think it's that because I'm a yoga teacher as well, so I've gone on to made the decision to go on to Zoom. So and it's just now and again. So I usually do one-to-one classes. People hit me up on my DMs or my website. I've just posted out a new program. So it's like 40 minutes. You have 10 minutes of breath work, 10 minutes of cardio, 10 minutes of yoga, 10 minutes of stretch and grounding. So I thought that's another useful tool because I know a little bit of fitness. I have a dance background and I teach yoga. So how do I then put that all together? I was a bit, at first when lockdown happened, I was a bit resistant because I just needed a moment to just go, okay, process, I'm here. Things have quietened down. Let me take the moment just to be still because I think I really needed that because as I was always going roller coaster, go. But then I was thinking it is useful being self-employed because I think I didn't freak out as much as somebody had a 9-to-5 job because I've got periods of go, then got moments of working at home maybe or being more static or traveling somewhere. So I think I'm used to this in my life because most people are very linear because they've had that for like 10 years, 20 years. They've got wife, kids and family or they've got a 9-to-5 job in the bank, just using that example. But I think being an artist, you have to adapt anyway because you might have a contract for 3 months, 1 day, 2 weeks. So I think it's been really useful in terms of resilience and also having a moment to be still and to reset and go, actually, what can I offer? How can I serve in a different way? And I'm still not, I haven't got the answer totally because it's our new normal. So we're all getting to grips with it, I think.
I love that. I love how you talk about resilience as a way of pause, of being still and reflecting on where you are. So being present in that moment and then making the correct, choices or decisions to move forward. And definitely for me, resilience is exactly the same thing of what is it that I have that I can then offer, and what is it that I can find within myself that I can use to create work or to make money in a different way. And I realized that our artists are missing the resilience because we've never been given I feel we've always been given work, like we've always been handed out work. So there's an audition. So it's like, okay, there's an audition you have to go to, there's projects that you have to do for this short time, and you have to do that. And so now when we have to sort of find the resilience within and pause and reflect, it's very difficult because of what we have become used to.
So true.
So I find that very, very interesting.
I totally agree with that because I was just thinking that about we're always in a state of reaction. Like there's a call out to a project, like you said, and then we apply and we wait to hear if we've got it or not, and then we can continue. And this is now like, oh, actually, I can do a business, because if it doesn't work out, I'll find a way of adapting it. I can, because we've got the technology as well. We've all lots of laptops or access to phones. I realised how much content I started to make, even if it's improvising or doing trailers or little e-flyers, because I made them before, but it's I think I'm honing my skills, so it's a little bit easier to get to the final point. If that makes sense. The final part. Yeah. But I'm still in that moment, that limbo of like, oh, actually, I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to do anything, but there is so much you can do, and it's just thinking, what is the what next? What next? Is it like, how do I see my company going into the future? What's it going to look like for COVID-19 after the lockdown? Because they're slightly relaxing. They will be doing in the next few weeks, because some young people are going back to schools and in June. So there's a slight relaxation of lockdown, but we don't know if there's a second wave, and all the science we have to contend with as well. And I think it hits the art community really hard, because we're to do with people and audiences and touching and
exactly
all those issues, which is really hard. I think art is going to be the hardest hit sector in some ways. Not taking away from people on the front line, of course.
Yeah, and I think what I've realized is, and I know maybe a lot of people might disagree with me, but I feel that we like artists in a global sense have become almost very paranoid with the idea that we are the only people that exist in this world. What do I mean by that? I mean, especially with the coronavirus, I feel a lot of artists have been going to the government and saying, "Oh, but you're not looking after us. You're not taking care of us, and we also need." And I feel like we have become so consumed with the idea that we are just existing in an island, and that our work, no one else is almost like can access within that world. And so our world, almost like as a global, in a global sense, has become and is still foreign to somebody growing up without any knowledge of art. It's almost like they're gonna go, "Oh, you want to be an artist? What is that? Artist? You're gonna go and dance and do what do you mean?" And I feel maybe we need to open up more and give more access to the culture of being an artist. I don't know if I'm making sense, though.
No, you are. And I think it is how we, as a society, hold art up, because everything's put into hierarchy of jobs to do, because everybody wants to be a lawyer or a doctor, which is amazing. But it's also like, oh, art's easy, it's ridiculous, it's hippie, you don't need it, even though the whole world is based on art and creativity and play. You think about just making, I don't know, going to IKEA and choosing your furniture, that's a creative decision. And artwork's gone into that, or you've read a novel on your holidays, somebody's written that and sat down and made decisions. And if you want to watch television, the radio, DJ at a club, if you go out and party, so it affects our lives, but I don't think it's at people's back of their brains, I think, rather than seeing it as actually it informs us, it makes sense of who we are as human beings. But yeah, I do think it's, and also going back to the point about how I think artists are marginalised as well, and a bit under the governments. I think it's a longer process. It's because it's been happening for a long time, as in arts funding's been cut, and I think this is like another nail in the coffin type thing. And here we are again, and we've got even less of the money. even though I know there's people probably debating, well, actually, this is a great time to be creative and you make your own place at the table. So I know there's that that thought as well, thinking actually this is a great new opportunities, recreating yourself, re-seeing yourself. If that makes sense.
Yes, definitely. And then so then it becomes almost like if we as artists have to now adapt to this new world. Now we have to adapt to different kinds of artists because we have an oversaturated internet of social media where everybody now has a TikTok video and has an Instagram dance that they're doing, which gets thousands and thousands of views. And then so the word artist becomes very gray and vague. And so then also it becomes for that artist who is working on, I don't know, conceptual idea around stillness, for example, and doesn't get that much of a reception, has to almost like also be put into an arena of commercialized art and artists. And so it becomes, I don't know what how would you answer somebody who asks the question, where to from now? Like, what do I do now as an artist? How would we answer that? What kind of?
So I think it's also about coexisting alongside, like, am I very commercial and shiny, or am I very conceptual and researchy? And it's like, how can these two worlds meet? Because I know I have pressure social media anyway, because sometimes I have to just go, stop, put it down. But it is helpful. The other side of you have a pressure thinking, oh, I've got to make more content or have more Zoom classes, be present because I'm competing with everybody else is making lovely shiny content. So it's also finding your authentic voice within that. I'm still playing with that as well, because I used it before, but I'm using it more now, and I'm trying to also take care of myself, and not just go and just thinking about hopefully the audience are being fed in a way that we both can be happy about they're getting fed and I'm getting fed in a different way, not just always go chasing. If that makes sense. And that is really hard, because you're trying to also try to be an artist, also trying to make money. I totally get it. Did you? I don't know if you've touched. Sorry, on Instagram, there's a company it's in America, and it's called Jonah's Company, I think. Basically, I follow one of the dancers, and the company artist director has put a performance out in this lockdown. So basically, the dancers are wearing PPE masks. They found I think it was some sort of car park or open space, and the cars create a circle, so they create the stage, and they put their lights on, the headlights on. I think the dancers were tested for COVID, and they were given, I don't know if it was over Skype or something, or Zoom, giving 3 solos. I think they had to learn, and then they structured it, so they did this performance. So they created the space, he found it, he tested them. And I thought that was just an interesting way of like dealing with still obeying the rules and being safe, but also art, which is different as well. And I know we have site-specific art, but it might be interesting for people to come to art in a new way. It's almost like a drive-in movie, but it's like a live performance type thing. But
that's amazing. That's amazing. I should follow that up. I will follow that up.
Yeah.
And I feel that's where we are moving to as artists, is mobile theater, is industrial theater, is artists just sort of becoming doctors and artists and receptionists and barmen and all of the above, and where the art world is not just a narrow, small world that just gets like the last piece of funding from the government, but it becomes part of the culture. Um,
it's almost like you need it from like a small child, like how
yeah.
they implement music and dance and movement or
Hmm.
painting within the schedule. Because I know over here it's so oversaturated, so what's the word? Just almost pressurized because the teachers have got loads of the curriculum to teach in a short space of time, and they're overloaded now because they're having more and more exams at a younger age. So the core
Hmm.
subjects are there like English, math, science, which is great, and they have language, but then everything else is crammed in, or not much time for things, or not much money. But I think you're right. If you ingrain it into the culture at earlier
Yeah.
years, people see the benefit of it and how you actually feel your well-being is affected in a
Yeah.
positive way. Because I
Yeah.
noticed, because I used to teach adults, I used to do an adult program every week for 12 weeks, and I did it for a few years.
Yes.
And it's interesting because it wasn't until maybe the end of the program, um,
The,
end of the program, I would get to know the, because it was only an hour and a half each week, get to know the actual participants. So, and I realised some of them were dentists or doctors or animators or all different walks of life. And they all said it was like their outlet for the week. It was like, it's almost like they contained themselves and they couldn't wait to get in the studio. Not because it was just my teaching, but just as in dancing and moving and touching and feeling and expressing for an hour and a
hmm.
half. So I think it
Hmm.
is really important for one's mental health. And if that was ingrained at a younger age, then
Mm.
when something like this happens, people will see the necessity for
Yeah.
arts.
Hmm.
Of course, you need food and you need water, you need health and all the rest of it. That's really important. But I just think arts is important as well for well-being and expression.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think just touching lastly on the term resilience as arts. I mean, we've spoken about adaptability. We've spoken about how art can be sort of um, become part of the macro culture. But I want us to talk a little bit more about resilience in a sense of not being a word that we describe as surviving or synonymous to surviving.
Mm-hmm.
But in another sense, resilience becomes a space where we have sort of settled. So my idea is um, uh, almost like seeing I don't know, almost like seeing the artist as somebody who is able to settle within themselves as being an artist
Mm-hmm.
first,
Mm-hmm.
but before that, also settle in being a human being who has so much of other skills, who is given so much of other talents, who is able to discover their true purpose by understanding who they are fully, and understanding that as a constant dialogue with oneself on a
Yes.
daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that it doesn't become that when we have a crisis like this again, we go, oh, what are we going to do as artists? But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, cool. I'm not panicking
Yeah.
because I am assuring myself
Mm-hmm.
that my art or my skills or myself as a human being are able to make me stay afloat
Mm-hmm.
or within that phase until another phase comes on, another phase comes on. And it's a phase where we are constantly um, uh, developing and changing our own selves
Mm-hmm.
because we discover new possibilities within our own selves. Um, I don't know if that makes any
No,
sense.
no, it does. It's the whole. I don't know if I'm getting it right. It's almost like wrapping yourself into one identity, but knowing that you're many selves, not just one self, and
Yeah,
the skills that you acquire as well. Is that
yeah,
what you're talking about?
definitely,
Um,
definitely, yeah,
and that's
uh,
really interesting because I just realised along the line I've had to, and I'm still in that mode of what is this new normal, but also where where do I fit in, or am I making myself bigger than the actual table that I'm trying to sit around? Um, Especially, I mean, come back to it in terms of age, just because I'm a mature dancer. So I realized I wasn't getting as many auditions. So I was like, actually, I'm going to start dancing solos or put myself in my own work, even though I love choreographing on bodies. And that was a way of just going, actually, I have got these skills. I can put them out in a different way. I don't have to wait and react. And also I realized that my movement skills, I love talking and engaging people or connecting with people, helped me with my teaching. And then I remember taking a yoga course and realizing I might not teach it, but I wanted to know more. So it was that element of research, element of just wanting to know more. And then again, I've adapted that into my skills. So it's helped dealing with people in any walks of life, because yoga's touches so many people, engages people in a different way than art does, even though it can be one and the same. Some people might argue. But I just think also just having to, for instance, do these Zoom meetings and getting to grips with some new technology I might not have done before. It's equipped me with different skills. And I think it's just allowing yourself to go, actually, I might learn a new language in this time. I might, not that you have to, but you might learn a new language. I might start baking. I might start do a bit of gardening. I might get into fitness or reading something else. And it's, like you said, it's like evolving your identity. So you're more than one thing that keeps them going on regardless.
It's that idea. It's definitely that idea of being fully present and fully human and fully existing in the totality of yourself. And I don't know, I think that's exactly what I'm taking away from this corona.
Sorry, you just reminded me of, I remember going to a seminar and there was a ex-ballerina from the Royal Ballet company, and it was about people transitioning into different worlds, world of work. And she became, I think she was like a mentor coach, and she realized it was a core principle she'd learned in dance that she wanted to take elsewhere. Because you go through a mourning period, she was saying, and she still has a little bit of that. But it wasn't, she realized it was time to finish because she did all the roles she wanted to. And she said, what is it that dance has given me? And it was like community, sense of self, all these principles. And she realized it was a core principle she loved, and then she could bring it into different fields. So I don't know, you could be an investment banker or a person that sells a yacht. But it's like, do I still have these core values or core principles that I can take into whatever other job or every market I want to be in? So I just thought it was just interesting what you were talking about, your authentic self and your purpose. It just reminds me of that.
I think it's definitely that. I think that going deep within oneself, you definitely realize that we are powerful beings. Each man, and I mean man and woman, is so capable of achieving and doing everything that they wish to do. And I think it's the decision to move away from the fear, I think. Fear of, okay, I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. I'm not going to go to an audition anymore. I'm not going to perform anymore. And moving away from that fear and going, actually, I will do much more than I did before. And it's going to the idea of, okay, the corona has finished, or that has happened in my life. What do I have now? And I have myself, and I have a brain, I have a mind that thinks, I have two eyes that see, I have two hands that still work, a voice that can still be heard. And so it takes that decision, and also to work, going back to the idea of collective, to go and to speak to somebody, to reassure you, actually, you could do something like this, or let's work together. And I'm also taking away from this conversation. As much as you are all the way in London and I'm in South Africa, but the sense is that I'm learning from somebody who doesn't have to be present here, but I'm using the technology that we have to gain more insight and to gain more knowledge.
And it's that's what I realized about just how much access we have, I think, as people, like the phone, like I've got, like you said, I'm speaking to somebody in South Africa on my phone, and the phone does so much, or you can research on Google at a drop of a hat. Because I'm old enough to remember times before the internet. I remember sending off headshots and cover letters by hand and putting the post button, the stamp, and waiting for a reply to come back. But now you can just zip an email out with an attachment, and there's so much we can use on the net and research. And I think you're right in we've got all these tools at our disposal. It all starts from here or in your heart, and also learning from periods of time like this time now, and coming out of it, you can reflect maybe when you're out of it, like what have I learned, what have I taken from? It's like actually I'm stronger than I thought I was, or maybe I needed more time, maybe I needed more rest time, or So I think because you're always evolving as a person, hopefully, and then also what sometimes you have to sit still for a while just to reflect on what you have and where your next goal is, and also making those goals attainable as well. And you might have a arcing goal, a big umbrella goal, but I always find like having little bite-sized steps towards that goal, because I think that's the fear comes from. It's like, I want to be, I don't know, a neuroscientist. That's amazing, but if I don't start thinking, actually, maybe I'll read about it first. Maybe I'll start looking on some courses online. Maybe, and then I'll go on have I got the prerequisites? Have I got maths? Have I got science qualifications? Do I need to enroll in a class? So it's those little moments that ends up to the bigger moment. Because if I look back on stuff I've done, I wouldn't have thought, oh my God, I never would have thought I would have done that. But it's because of the process and the prepping and the research and believing in oneself, or believing in yourself enough to go to the next goal, the next step.
Definitely.
Because I know it's hard sometimes. You go, oh my God, I've got this massive goal, and that's when fear sets in. You go, I'm not good enough. I won't get there. It hasn't happened. I come from a small town. I'm this age. I'm this height. I'm this race. And this sexuality. It's never gonna. But if you keep telling yourself that, it's not going to happen. I just think if you can just narrow everything down, and just think about where am I today, what can I do today, and then what can I do tomorrow, and then it'll hopefully process like that.
I love that. I love because I get a sense of how, I mean, as you are describing, I'm just seeing almost like this thread of connectedness from since you began till now, and it's almost like you didn't choose to be in front of the camera now in 2020 speaking to somebody else who's all the way in South Africa, but it's almost like this thread of connectedness that has led you up until your present reality. And I guess then we are all then connected. We are all then connected to other streams of consciousness. For example, engineers and doctors and lawyers and government. And so then we should stop looking at art or as the artist as a one world kind of space, but it becomes multiple layers that we also find within ourselves, going back to the self being a multi-layered self. And so I'm very happy that we had this conversation.
Essentially. That was what you said about connectivity, because I remember watching a TED talk and they were saying about the creativity in all of us, as in we always think, oh, I'm not a creative person because I'm not a dancer, actor, musician, but we make creative choices all the time. Like we get at what we're going to have to eat, how do we prepare it, what you're going to wear for that interview or that meeting. So we're always being creative. We've got playing with our children. what route we're going to take to work. All these small little creations we make all the time. So I like that idea of the thread that goes throughout humanity, basically. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Gerrard. Yeah, I think we answered. I think we answered all of them. We answered all of those questions. Yeah, I think. Thank you so much for your time, man. I hope you can have another conversation. It doesn't have to be about artists. Maybe it could be something else. So maybe we could even do like a live yoga or meditation. I don't know.
Yeah, great.
Really looking forward to a next session with you.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gerrard. Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much. You too.